Welcome back to the Pillars of the Earth.
I can't believe you two have almost done it. You've almost won your father's earldom back.
Oh, don't say that until it's actually happened. I'll see you later in the evening.
Ah, there you are.
I always wondered what it would have been like to grow up in a forest.
Oh, it's cold. Very, very cold. When I was young, I spent a night in Ellen's cave. If it hadn't been for her soup, I would have died for sure.
What kind of soup?
I think it had deer in it.
Deer?
Yes. Jack had caught it before we met him. I think it was the only one he ever caught.
But hunting deer is...
I know. It's punishable by death. Jack never was one for rules and laws.
Right. He was always busy with something, just not with what Tom asked him to do.
Jack? Yes. Yes, he was.
You will be an aunt soon.
What?
But don't tell Alfred. I haven't told him yet.
You still think marrying him was a mistake?
I do.
I do too. But you did it for very good reasons. So, maybe it wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe it will work. Not in a loving way, but more like a partnership. You two seeing eye to eye to each other.
Maybe. But the baby is not...
What was that?
They built it too fast. Like the Babylonians, they sought to be grander than God, and for this we all have to suffer.
It was the stone roof. He started building a stone roof. If Papa had still been alive, he would have stopped him.
You're with child? How can you be with child if we never...
My cub is gone and will never return. You threw it all away for a life of lies and a kingdom of dust.
Without a cathedral, my mother will spend an eternity in hell. And by God, I hope you won't suffer the same fate for this. I can't stay. Not without work, and not like this. I'm sorry.
There's no need to cry. There. We've been crying for far too long now. Where do we go from here?
We will build a cathedral right here, towering high above Shiring. But it will not be a cheap undertaking.
Money is no object. I shall build it for our Lord and my mother, so that the Lord will heal her.
I am sure he will. Ah, yes, there he is.
Who?
We will need a master builder.
My bishop, I think I have the right man.
My bishop, my name is Alfred Builder.
We now start book 3.
The White Ship. She was one of the fastest vessels that was ever built. The man who should be king of the English now, the son of King Henry, was on board when she sailed off. And with the prince there were 140 knights and many nobles, all on their way from Normandy to England. They say the ship hit the rocks, and then a fire broke out. Even before the White Ship had departed, the prince and his men had begun to drink and get violent. Monks that were meant to bless the voyage were then forced to disembark. Some say the ship had been cursed. The king's son and many of his family were pulled down into the Black Sea that night.
You're forgetting one important detail. Not only these monks, but also Stephen of Blois, the king's nephew, left the ship before it embarked. They say he got ill.
That old rumor.
The same Stephen who calls himself the King of the English now.
What? That cannot be a coincidence.
Yes, it can be. Of course he's king now. He survived. He is the king's nephew.
What do you think, my lord?
I think Stephen is a clever man. Clever enough to have his whole family perish. But why he would want to rule that god-forsaken rock, I will never understand.
What makes you say that? I love my country.
Then why are you leaving?
Well, because I want to see something new.
I'll tell you what you're going to see. A proper country, where people know how to behave.
What about you? Why are you leaving?
I'm looking for someone.
For who? I guess I should stay out of other people's business. Forgive me.
You English do talk a lot, don't you?
I just don't know how to feel about leaving my country for the first time. I mean, how should anyone feel?
You'll see what happens.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just running away.
You should all get some rest. It will not be long now till we reach Cherbourg.
Thank the Lord. I can't wait to be back.
In the late summer of 1142, I had left my home country, England, for good. My old life lay in shambles, as did my former home of Kingsbridge. Having failed both my friends and family, I had set out to find my baby's father, the man I still loved with all my heart, Jack Jackson. And so early one morning in July, I finally arrived on the shores of Normandy. With nothing on me but a pouch of coin and a young, curious face yet unnamed, who was just as unfamiliar to this new world as was I.
The sinking of the White Ship 1120. The White Ship was one of the fastest ships of its time. It was steered by the son of captain of the Mora, the ship that brought William the Conqueror from Normandy to England when he invaded England in 1066. Like his father before him, the captain of the White Ship gladly offered his vessel to many members of the royal household of King Henry for passage on their travel from Normandy to England to visit the king. But like all the poor souls who went aboard the ship, the captain did not survive the voyage. In the dark of night, the ship hit rocks and fire broke out. The ship was dragged down into dark abyss of the sea, and with it, many of the king's heirs. Stephen of Blois was meant to be on board as well, but it is said a sudden sickness caused him to leave the ship before he set sail. That November night, as the White Ship sank, Stephen became the last remaining male heir to the English throne, and thus some claim he was responsible for the sinking.
You're still here?
Oh, it's you. I'm just trying to get my feet used to good solid ground again. The last bit of our voyage wasn't exactly my pint of ale.
That hammer you're carrying, do you happen to be a mason?
Actually, I am. You have a keen eye, mistress.
I guess I just know a mason when I see one.
To be honest, I haven't been one long. Just finished my apprenticeship in Salisbury. Before that, I used to shear sheep with my parents, but I guess that wasn't really for me. Father still hates me for leaving, though.
What will you do to find work here as a mason?
Don't know. That's for me to find out. All I heard was that the wages are better over here.
So you'll just travel from town to town and look for employment?
Right. And I'll start in Lassay. A fellow mason told me about the abbey there. He said these Normans build their churches quite differently than we do back home. I need to see that with my own eyes. Maybe learn a thing or two.
Do many masons go to Lassay?
I don't know. It's really just a tiny town. The mason who told me just happened to do some repairs there once. It's likely he told others as well.
I left my old life as well.
Scary, isn't it? To start off fresh and all that.
Well, you definitely sound more excited than scared.
Oh, I am excited. Wouldn't anyone be?
I don't know. Maybe. Have a safe journey.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Good day. I am looking for someone. A traveller who came through here last summer. Oh, hush now. I need to talk to this man.
Looks young.
He was born at the beginning of summer.
What's his name?
I haven't given him one yet.
You should. He needs to know who he is. Makes growing up a lot easier. You said you're looking for someone.
The man I'm looking for looks a bit like you, actually. A bit more boyish, though.
So he has red hair, but no beard. Well, I don't know every redhead around these parts. There are quite a few of us. Most of my family here in Cherbourg is ginger.
Oh, his name is Jack Jackson, and he is a mason.
No. No, sorry, I haven't seen him. And I come here every day. Maybe May saw him. She helps the sailors get their cargo to the nearby towns. Carries travellers, too.
I'll ask her. Well, thank you.
Hey, you. That's quite a bundle you got there. Where are you headed?
Have you seen a red-haired mason? He must have landed here sometime late last summer.
Another ginger in Normandy? I wouldn't have noticed, even if he was carrying a hammer instead of a fishing rod. Maybe you should ask someone in Barfleur. That's where all the travellers come through, the pilgrims and kings. Their lot rarely lands in Cherbourg, with the fortress passing back and forth between Stephen of Blois and Geoffrey of Anjou. Why you even came to Cherbourg in the first place baffles me.
It was the earliest ship I could get.
You must be in some hurry, madam.
Let's just say I needed to get away before I changed my mind.
Fine with me. Who am I to judge?
What other routes are there besides going through Barfleur?
Oh, I don't know, really. You need to ask the locals about that. But Barfleur sounds like a good place to start. Shake my hand and I'll take you there. Travelling by coach is a lot less strenuous than walking. Your little worm deserves some warmth and a rocking carriage.
He's only just arrived too. I should ask locals. Apart from Barfleur, what other ports do people commonly use to get into France?
Apart from Barfleur? Well, there's Harfleur. Sometimes people even go through Honfleur, which is close by. You could ask May to take you.
I might. Thank you for your help. I'm afraid I can't help it. You really are quite like him.
Maybe I should become a mason then. Would definitely pay more than being a fisherman. Have a safe journey.
The harbours of Normandy. Barfleur is one of the chief ports of embarkation for England and is important for Normandy's ship construction. It is the most popular harbour for voyages of rulers and royalty on their way to or from England. Harfleur is another prominent seaport which used to be the principal port of the ancient Calestis. In old times, a Roman road led from Harfleur directly to Troyes. Honfleur is another small port not far from Harfleur. Cherbourg is a fishing town, but has recently become a center of political conflict. In their effort to win the ongoing war, Stephen of England and Geoffrey of Anjou, the Norman husband of Empress Maud, have fought more than once to each claim Cherbourg and its harbor for their side.
Changed your mind, madam? You know, I reserved a cosy spot just for you. Where do you need to be?
Do you know the road to Lessay?
Been there, seen it. But I hope you're not planning to go there on foot. Tell you what, you give me some coins and I'll treat you to me wagon. You can even change your destination once we're on the road, would you say?
All right. Take me out of town.
All right. Where do you need to be?
Lessay was tiny, but as it turned out, worth the trip. In the small abbey church of the Trinity, I met a monk who claimed to have talked to a man fitting Jack's description. He'd been fascinated by the abbey's rib vaulting and had asked the monks countless questions about the place's construction. The monk apologized that he couldn't tell me where Jack had traveled next, but I didn't mind. I lay down to sleep on the floor of the Abbey guest house and, for the first time in almost a year, I felt relief. As I drifted into sleep, I hugged our baby tight and whispered into his tiny pink ear, "We're going to find your daddy." My father had once told me tales of the Mont Saint-Michel. Long ago, the Archangel Michael had urged Hubert of Avranches to build an abbey on a lonely rock on the ocean by burning a hole into his head. They say one can go and see his penetrated skull on display in the church of his hometown. It was a windy day when I arrived, and the place was crowded with pilgrims and jongleurs. I remembered Jack's fascination with these tellers of stories. I spoke to one who was just taking a break. As it happened, he had indeed met Jack, although not in Mont Saint-Michel, but on a road heading east from there. Apparently, Jack had been hopelessly tracking jongleurs who might have known his father, Jack Cherbourg. But as he'd been gradually running out of money, he'd intended to look for work in Le Mans or Tours. That was about 6 months ago. I was catching up. Going to Le Mans reminded me of all the trouble I'd left behind in England. 30 years ago, Le Mans had been conquered by the Plantagenet Geoffrey of Anjou, Maud's husband. And although they'd held it ever since, other noble families kept on pulling at the city, like Maud and Stephen tearing at England. There was no sign of Jack, but I got news of a new kind of cathedral being built in Saint-Denis, just north of Paris. It was possible that Jack had gone there to learn from the craftsmen. That was, if he hadn't travelled further south, looking for work in one of the many churches in Tours, the hometown of Saint-Martin. Good day. Are you the master builder?
What is it?
I'm looking for a mason who may have passed through here. An Englishman with carroty hair. He calls himself Jack Jackson.
A redhead?
Yes. Did you see him? He might have asked for work here.
No, I'm not looking for new masons. We're just doing repairs.
Ah, but was he here?
No, never seen him. Now, stand back, woman. Something could fall on your baby's head.
Are there other construction sites around Tours?
Well, yes. It's a big town.
And where would an outsider most likely find a job?
Dunno. Ask around.
May I talk to your workers?
No, they're busy. And I can assure you they have nothing to say on that matter.
Perhaps I'll talk to them once they've finished for the day.
It would be a waste of time.
You hesitated when I mentioned a redhead. Are you sure you haven't seen him?
Yes, I am sure. All right, he was here. He was working for me, but I had to throw him out after 2 or 3 days.
Why?
Because he was all want. Let me redesign the roof, let me make the nave lighter. All pretty ideas, but he never shut up long enough to do the work he was supposed to do. Shit, that man was almost as needy as my son when he was still a brat.
He does know a lot about his craft.
Well, I know masons like him. They grow up gifted, but without a mote of discipline in their guts. Can't work with someone like that.
Do you know where he went next?
No idea. Maybe to Limoges or Angoulême. Maybe even to La Rochelle. Seemed to have plans for every cathedral on God's green earth, but none for himself.
I understand. I'll leave you to it then.
Bon voyage.
We had just left Tours when I suddenly felt dizzy. I stopped and made rest, trying to catch my breath, then lost my breakfast in a ditch at the side of the road. To my horror, our baby too had grown pale, his breath shallow like that of an old man. I tried not to panic, but the next inn was a long distance away and we couldn't stay on the road where it was wet and cold. I managed to walk until the sun had fully risen before I keeled over. A knife merchant who'd been travelling behind me flagged down a coach heading back to Tours and haggled with the coachman to carry me back to an inn. Back in Tours, the fever got worse. I remember people carrying me into a room, laying me on a bed. I tried to feed my baby, but after that, everything turned into a blur. When I awoke, Jack was standing next to my bed. He scolded me for following him. "You know you could go anywhere you want," he whispered. "Why be stupid and follow me?" I tried to answer, but he just opened the window and jumped out, heading toward ancient Greece, or maybe all the way to Arabia. And in my feverish mind, I followed him. The further I went, the angrier I got. For years, I'd been fighting for my family. I'd committed myself to an oath to my father. I'd built up a business to sustain it and even married a man I despised so I could create a future for the people around me. I'd known nothing but my duty to the men in my life, while the man I was trying to find lived a life of casual irresponsibility. He travelled the world on a whim to learn about mathematics and philosophy, while I had to raise the child he'd fathered. When could I ever do anything just for myself? I asked the world as I went on. I'd travelled in a circle all the way to the edge of the world and back, only to return to the place of our failure. With my eyes closed, I listened to the sound of ripping yarn and crumbling walls, and of coaches carrying good people away into a cloud of crimson dust. When the last moat had settled, I opened my eyes again and found myself in a dirty little room. An old maid was sitting next to my bed and smiled at me, then handed me my baby. Oh, dear God, he still looked so pale. The more I tried to keep him warm, the colder he felt. Oh, please, God, let him live. Don't punish him for my own sins. I gently caressed his head until finally he put his mouth to my breast and drank more and more, becoming greedier with every swallow. We had both been spared. We rested one more day. Then I gathered my things and headed back to the cathedral to thank the Lord for his mercy.